Welcome. We're here with Gautam Bisht. He was a 2025 DDG awardee, and we're going to talk about how the TIRF doctoral dissertation grant impacted his research journey. Hi, Gautam. And why don't we start out with, can you please tell us about yourself and your personal journey? Where did you complete your doctorate? What are your areas of research interest? And where are you living and working now?
Great. So thank you, first of all, for this opportunity. My name is Gautam, and I'm currently doing my PhD, like it's towards the end of my PhD journey at Northwestern University in the School of Education and Social Policy. And my research interests are in the field of language and literacy, specifically around storytelling, translanguaging, and how we can basically support students who are culturally marginalized in our systems to be able to bring their cultural references and languages into the classroom. So that's broadly how I would define my research interest. And I'm from India, and there are so many languages there, and we do have a very healthy debate around multilingualism in the institutions that have kind of inspired me to take on this work. Yeah, that's what I say.
That's awesome. Thank you. For our non-linguistics audience, do you want to explain a little bit more what translanguaging is?
Yes. So let's say there's been a huge body of work that has been trying to basically emphasize how having space for multiple languages in a classroom, the significance of having multiple languages in a classroom. And there are different terms that people use. A very straightforward term is encouraging multilingualism, which means a student learning multiple languages. Right. And then over a period of time, people also basically try to push for this new thing, not new that much now, but comparatively new, is translanguaging. And the difference is that in multilingualism, it is expected that, let's say, a student will learn, let's say they're learning three languages, but they'll be learning it separately. There'll be a different class for English, a different class for French, a different class for Hindi, and then they're expected to learn them as separate entities. Whereas in translanguaging, it is more inspired by looking at people actually using languages. And when they use languages, for example, if you are in North India and you're talking to somebody, they won't even realize that they're actually mixing a lot of languages within a single sentence. So languages are not like distinct entities. They are always already in a hybrid mode, functioning in so many places in the world. So translanguaging basically pushed for this idea that instead of, having different classes, let's just work with how students and communities organically mix languages and, work with them together. So it could be a translanguaging reading session where you're using texts that does translanguaging. It could be just orally allowing students to discuss and switch languages wherever and however they feel comfortable, or even in writing where they're composing texts where you will see so many examples on the internet, which are where people may not know the word translanguaging, but they're always kind of switching between languages and modalities on the internet. So encouraging those practices in that hybrid format is how I would define translanguaging. Yeah.
Thank you. That was a wonderful definition. The next question is, how did receiving a TIRF award impact your journey academically and professionally? Were there particular opportunities, connections, or experiences that emerged because of the award?
Hmm. So I think one of the first things that happens when you receive such an award from an institution is you get to learn about other people who received the award and what kind of stuff that they are doing, and then meeting with them and collaborating with them. So I think that has been getting other people who are interested broadly in the same thing around language, and pushing for education that is kind of exploring different aspects of how humans interact and engage with language. I think that is one of the big impacts that this award has given me. Apart from that, then there are other things, because one aspect of my work is in India, and it requires 2-3 layers of translation work that has to happen because I'm working with a community that speaks Santali. And then I have to convert all of the data sometimes into English for analysis and publication. So the award money really helps with the translation services and the work that needs to happen to really take the data and make it into a publication level stuff, or basically to broadly disseminate the work. And thirdly, I think it's just about also getting some mentorship, talking to people, professors, and just broadly getting into this network where people have been working so hard on this one difficult, complicated problem around language. So I think these are some of the impact and some of the ways in which the award has really helped me.
That's awesome. Thank you. Um, the next question is, how has your doctoral research influenced classroom practice, teacher education, educational policy, or language learning more broadly?
Okay. So there are two legs, let's say, to my work. One is the US chapter that I'll come to later, but the first is in India. And in India, we have a policy. We have a national education policy that was recently came up, and there they have a provision of, as I said, encouraging multiple languages, mother tongue of young people, especially in areas, tribal areas, or in culturally marginalized segments. And the question always comes that there is this policy, but how do teachers do it? So there's not many studies that try to throw light on the pedagogical processes of actually doing this, especially translanguaging. There's still some work on multiple languages, as I was saying, done separately, but on translanguaging, what are the strategies? And what are the kinds of conversations that you would want to have in that classroom if you really want to make that shift in mindset? Because some of this work also relates to implicit language ideologies. For example, if I invite a student and in a classroom and I say, "Oh, you're absolutely free to use your indigenous languages in the classroom," it does not immediately happen because they've also internalized a lot of these linguistic hierarchies, what's proper, what's improper, what I can do in school. So you need to, beyond mere invitation, you need to have this kind of deliberation with students about what is this linguistic hierarchy, where it's coming from. So a lot of my work is actually theorizing these interactions in the classroom, where what supports this kind of shift that the students have to go through, and what can teachers do. So some kind of naming those strategies, articulating some case studies where a student actually used their multiple languages and documented their, let's say, community food system. So these are the kind of work that I do, and I hope that some of this kind of help other teachers and researchers who are more in the how-to zone now, because we do have excellent research about the benefits of using multiple languages and why it's necessary. I would say my lane is more into the designing and how to and the pedagogical support stuff. Yeah.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Yeah, the next question was kind of on the same front, so I'm going to skip to the next one, which is where do you see your research going in the future? And how are you continuing to engage with English language education? And in what ways has your research evolved since you received TIRF's award, which I know for you is like really recent. So maybe this is a shorter answer, but
Yeah,
respectful.
I mean, frankly, because I'm still doing my PhD, my research is exactly where it was when I proposed the work. But yeah, but for this, I'll also, I think, last in my last answer, I wanted to say something about my US work, and that is something that's continuously evolving. But because in the US we work with actually, we worked in heterogeneous classroom, by which I mean all kinds of students, but there's a specific kind of curriculum and specific kind of ideas that we are trying to design for, which is how can students talk about migration in classrooms and the discourses around migration in classrooms. But then these classrooms have both immigrants and non-immigrant students, or students who do not identify as immigrants, because that's a conversation that's very important, like how to do it together, and have those, let's say, some sort of a contestation around what this mean and what these ideas are. So I've been one direction in which I've been trying to expand my work is to do more of this in the US context with different classrooms. For example, not just in English language classrooms, but also, let's say, in a civics classroom, because some of these debates overlap with these subjects. So interdisciplinary perspective is one broader, interesting aspect of the work that I'm looking forward to. We also are now, as we've done a few cycles of the migration storytelling curriculum in the US, what we are looking forward to is co-designing with children or kids. Because they've been through this curriculum, and for the second round, we've been having conversations of how we can include not just the teachers, but students themselves, and if possible, the communities in making the future iterations of this curriculum more powerful and more inclusive. So yeah.
It's very cool. Thank you. This is the last question. How do you see TIRF's value as an organization in our field, either for researchers or for education more directly?
Great. I think so. Given that there's a lot of funding crisis overall going on in education, And even within education, as somebody who's interested in language and literacy, this is a little bit of a marginal identity, because there's a lot of, even within education, there's a hierarchy of funding where, if you are a AI person right now, or you are into STEM, or it's just computer science, you'll get a lot of grants because there's some kind of whatever hegemony of the significance of these subjects. But when it comes to language and literacy, there's not many grants that are dedicated to it. And in that sense, the institution is doing a great job in supporting some of these works, supporting some of the most, I would say, not just experimental, but works that is really, really necessary, but do not get that kind of attention. I know TUF also do scholarships and funding for teachers. So what I love about TUF is their attention to not just research, but to application, to pedagogy, to teacher education, so that balance between research and action is something that I really appreciate. And as I said, the focus on language and literacy is rare, and it is getting narrower. And in that space, what the institution is doing, I mean, I'm grateful.
That's wonderful. Thank you. That's all my questions, but thank you so much.
Great.